A huge thank you to Thunderful Games and all the lovely devs over at To The Sky for providing me access to GODBREAKERS. A link to the game's PlayStation and Steam pages are in the description. As my longtime audience knows, I have recently caught the Roguelite bug.
And if you're stopping by for the first time, welcome. I'm happy to have you here.
But RoboQuest was the first game that really grabbed me and demonstrated just how fun and chaotic these games can be. Roguelites give me that same feeling I get when going from the start of a long RPG and then looking at your now beefed up character when you're at the end of it. It's the way in which these games shuttle your character's progression down the express lane like a crazed soccer mom on the freeway. I've kept my eyes peeled for my next roguelite obsession, and this is where Steam Next Fest comes in. This celebration of indie devs is a melting pot for demos of all kinds. Roguelites especially. It's where I first discovered GODBREAKERS. My best friend Nick and I played the demo and had a blast, but we were hungry for more.
Some time would pass and GODBREAKERS would open up content creator submissions, and I may have submitted like 2 or 3 times. I was excited. I wanted to play this game and get a review out for it. And you better believe I was over the moon when Thunderful reached out with some codes for my friends and I. If anyone from the team is watching this, thank you so much for the opportunity. But let's get started. This is GODBREAKERS.
The story of GODBREAKERS is pretty typical if I'm being honest. Humanity creates an AI to help out with it realizes true perfection cannot be created while humanity lives, it tries to wipe us out and it mostly succeeds, and its next target is the sun. Humanity's last hope are the GODBREAKERS, these little action figures that you and your friends take control of. They'll traverse the biomes, defeating the titular gods that stand in the way. The ultimate goal of the AI is to snuff out the sun so that humanity will fall, so that's the last boss's arena. Again, it's pretty cool, but it's not what I would call thought-provoking, which was also the sentiment of To The Sky. They wrote in a Steam blog post that they are a gameplay-first kind of studio, explaining that the narrative in GODBREAKERS is more like a DVD commentary track, where the bosses will leave these data logs about the place, and if you're interested, you can sit down and listen to them and find out their true feelings on stuff, but I will always be the kind of player that prefers my story to be told to me in the traditional ways, given that the story itself is entertaining enough already. Evil AI versus humanity is the perfect fit for a game where the player has to constantly die and respawn, but that's exactly why we've seen it a million times, you know?
I never expected the story to be why I booted up GODBREAKERS, but that's okay. I don't think the devs expect that themselves. For me, it was the combat, the co-op, and the visuals that had me hooked from that very first trailer.
Easily, one of the game's biggest strengths is the art style. It features some of the most incredible visuals I've seen in a while. Battle effects in particular are so satisfying to watch as they litter the battlefield. When absorbing the powers of the enemies, the VFX look great.
Oh, I'm making him tweak.
I saw him twerking.
The trail effects that each weapon leaves when performing these flashy combos are mesmerizing. Just look at these idiots, just swinging their weapon because it looked that cool. It's the equivalent of jingling f***ing keys in front of their faces, but it just looks so sick. Yeah. The animations also contribute to that. It's something about the way the characters move that looks heavy yet fluid at the same time. To go full animation dweeb for a moment, I blame the posing. During a lot of these attack animations, characters will move from key poses decently fast, but they'll then hang on those poses for a brief moment before moving to the next action. It's the pausing on these dynamic poses in the middle of combat that solidifies the style this game has. It really has a way of bringing out the anime fan in all of us.
Yeah.
Forsaken Slash!
Crescent Moon Slash.
And that's to say nothing of the vibrant colors represented on each of the planets, because they are breathtaking. With ornaments like breakable bones, cuttable grass, and the pools of toxic waste littered throughout these hallways and battle arenas. It's truly remarkable just how diverse each of these biomes feel. This might sound like a weird comparison, but it's totally meant as a compliment. These biomes and their stark, bold, contrasting setting reminds me of Mario levels. We've got the lava world, the desert world, the botanical garden world. I could be nitpicky and ask for even more biomes like an icy mountaintop or a water-themed location like a dock or island. I'm going way off the rails here, I realize, but I just want to see anything and everything rendered in GODBREAKERS' unique style. It speaks to me in a similar way to Ghost of Tsushima or Clash Artifacts of Chaos. To me, all of these games have really spectacular art design, but have equally spectacular tech powering it all. GODBREAKERS runs like a dream, dude. On my RTX 3080 with a Ryzen 7 9700, I was able to crank this baby to max settings, 60 FPS with no DLSS, and it cruised. No hitches and no slowdowns whatsoever. And with AAA games coming out and being unable to run on the hardware it's designed for, let alone PCs, I think we need to applaud situations like this. If GODBREAKERS isn't at least in the running for best visual design design this year at the Game Awards, something is wrong. Music is good as well. I really liked how it dynamically changes during boss fights. When they're on their last legs and you're right there, it swells and it gets really dramatic.
I know you hear your anime soundtrack in the background pumping you.
Please shut the fuck up and let me focus.
But other than that, I couldn't recall any singular track if you asked me to. Maybe I should go purchase that soundtrack and give it a deeper listen. It is on Steam. Combat finds this really nice balance between speed and simplicity. Each weapon or archetype you can unlock shares the same inputs and combo lists, but the attacks and damage types change. By hammering R1, we have our light attack combo. This is your most universal input. Every weapon will perform a flashy, looping combo by spamming light attack. Heavy attack is where weapons will get a little more character. R2 will perform a stronger but much slower hit depending on what weapon you choose. The starting weapon, Lancer, throws out a pretty slow combo, so I never really bothered with it because of how slow it was. But my favorite archetype, the Duelist, would initiate a 3-hit shotgun blast combo. By holding down the heavy input, a charge will start for most weapons, granting a lot of damage if you can hold out for a second. But again, the ever-unique Duelist will put you into a third-person aiming mode, allowing you to shoot a ranged blast. Great for eating through lines of enemies or damaging bosses while they're unable to be physically hit. L2 will activate your weapon's equipped ability, and after throwing it out, it'll go on a cooldown. Pressing down on the D-pad will consume one of your limited health restoring items. Each character has 3 charges of a dash that can also be used to cancel out of any action, so you're never committed to any of your animations. And using a light attack after a dash will initiate a dash attack to catch enemies while still on the move. In many of the later arenas, there are grapple points that will pull your character to that point. Movement might seem sluggish at the beginning of the run, but towards the end, when these grapple points start becoming recurring characters, the speed of these battles is exhilarating. But you need to move this way because enemies are no joke. Even the basic enemies will have attacks that mess you up if you slip up on your movement, but it's never unfair, I find. GODBREAKERS has some top tier damage indicators. When an enemy is launching an AoE attack that will say splash on the ground or create an explosion, the indicator will give you all of the information you need. Same thing when the enemies are shooting something across the field. A line will indicate that danger and it's up to you to move out of the way. Boss fights in particular can get super chaotic with waves of damage overlapping, AoE explosions, and ads littering the fight while you're trying to avoid it all. Bosses have some really engaging moves, and as a fan of MMO-style bosses that pull out devastating attacks that call for a specific way of dodging or countering, I adore having to crowd behind a small barrier to avoid damage.
Come here often.
No.
Bosses are easily a highlight for me, some of the best content in the game, and these enemy attacks are what fuel GODBREAKER's defining mechanic. When an enemy is weakened enough and your source light has filled to 100%, an indicator will appear over their head. Pressing triangle will see you dash straight to them and absorb their ability. This grants you a one-time use of that enemy's unique attack. Pretty much every enemy you see can be godbroken and absorbed, leading to an insane amount of unique powers that you can find. There is a short timer that starts when absorbing an enemy's power, but from what I gather, nothing about the power changes if you let the timer run out or just press it immediately. My guess is this is just a small window of invincibility you can use to avoid damage in a hectic fight, which I say is a really cool feature. I couldn't tell you how many times I saw a breakable enemy in the middle of a boss fight, so I dashed over there to him and just waited out a bunch of attacks that were already sweeping over me. The enemy powers are great though. Some are as simple as a melee attack or a long-range shot across the field, so you would just burn those right then and there for some extra damage. But some, like the ones you can get from tougher enemies, should be held onto since they can turn the tide of a fight. Something like a group heal to fix up your squad in the middle of a fight. Or if you can take the Gardener mini-boss power and use it on the main boss, then you'll get results like this.
Did you see that, bitch?
All of the mini-boss powers seem like they're designed to absolutely wreck the planet's main boss, and that brings so much strategy to that planet. Because to hold on to that power, that means someone can't use enemy powers for like half of the planet's runtime. It's really fun to come up with those strats. The combat sandbox is so solid that I sometimes forget that we're in roguelite territory too. Instead of an endless supply of relics or passive abilities, you and your squad will find and wear equipment pieces with buffs. Head, torso, arms, penis.
Legs.
No, it's a pelvis. It's a little weenie.
Those are called legs.
No, the purple ones are the legs or the feet.
No, purple are feet.
I would not call
Orange.
this a leg. This looks like a... This is where the weenie
Read
should
the
be.
item.
It
Ross.
should be where the
Let's read
weenie
the item.
is.
What type of item is it called?
It's legs.
It says like.
Even though it is where the PP region
It's
is.
a weenie!
They are specific, curated pieces of gear with static attributes that you will come across on every run. It allows you to mix and match, but there's no stacking these perks if you find duplicates of that piece, which definitely does happen. Thankfully, we can recycle this equipment into resources used for upgrades. The other attributes we find are the essences. These gooey little flubbers will drop from enemies and award you with a small boost. There are a lot of types too. Poison enemies on hit, add decay on hit, maximum health increase, flat crit chance increase. The basic boosts to effectiveness that push your playstyle in any given direction. The essence and equipment does a good job of allowing you to mix flavors a bit. Equipment will often offer you perks that piggyback off of an ability or an attack. Something like increasing the power of jump attacks, creating a damaging trail after you dash, maybe even giving you an extra dash on top of your base 3. So then the decision becomes, how do you want your stats to lean? If you're wanting to go into poison or crits, make that known. Equipment and essences are dropped for each player. If your teammates know what you're going for and they get a piece of equipment that would be great for you, they can share it. Be careful though, the boys might make you work for that. Next time I have a piece of gear that you want, Daniel, I want you to bark for it.
What the f?
It is a little convoluted to have to drop a piece from your inventory and then interact with it again and then press the share option so everyone can see it. And on the flip side of that, you're kind of out of luck with the essences. This means that your stats are kind of left up to chance since essences cannot be shared. The merchant will have bundles of essence to give your stats a kick in the right direction, but yeah, keeping tabs on what your teammates are building into will immediately benefit you. The combat sandbox as a whole is just really polished. Matching that visual style and fidelity perfectly is the combat's wonderful balance. Nothing ever feels truly unfair. I really think combat is tuned to near perfection. There were a few times where we had made the comments on whether or not a double jump should be in the game, only to find a piece of equipment that does just that. I wouldn't change much about the dance combat provides. My parry-loving brainworms make me inclined to say a block button would be great, but the boss's raid-like mechanics and other buffs like barrier are already tuned so well that a block button would throw it all out of whack. There are just so many little things like being able to jump over certain enemy attacks and then punish with an aerial heavy attack into an aerial light attack and then dash away before their next attack hits that just feels incredible. Stage hazards that are unique to each planet that the player can avoid or even use to their advantage gives each planet and the respective battlefields a special flavor that the others don't have. You might be able to lead enemies straight into a trap with one, damaging them or killing them outright. Some may not be hazards at all. On the poison swamp planet, the enemies will often poison you.
Shit, honey!
This can spell trouble for your squad, which is where these crystal totems come in. Hitting them will emit an aura that cleanses anyone in range, but these crystals can only be used once or twice. Especially during the boss fight of the planet, communicating with the party to gather up on crystals is so important, but there was also a run where I found an ability that allowed me to cleanse myself and any nearby allies, giving us unlimited cleanses by total happenstance. The variety is simply off the charts. As a fan of character action games and the skill expression they bring, this is fantastic. The combat may not look as fast or exciting as I'm describing it, you won't be juggling enemies or labbing combos, but I assure you, it's a hell of a time. As is typical in roguelites, we have a little meta progression sprinkled over the top of everything. After beating bosses and collecting resources on runs, you'll be unlocking small increases to your character's base stats. Increased movement speed, starting the run with a random piece of equipment. Increased health gain from healing sources. Extra health item refills in the middle of runs. Not gonna lie, this tree does feel pretty flat for every player that has to go down it. The second and third tier of bonuses are locked until a certain amount of currency is spent on the first tier, which in and of itself is fine. It's the devs protecting us from making our characters too lopsided in one aspect. But here, every player has to unlock nearly all of the upgrades in the first tier before they move on to the second. There are still choices to be made, like how my teammates had more rerolls on the merchant shop than I did, while I had boosts in other aspects. I just think a little more freedom in the meta progression would have given each player a more unique decision on how they'd like to play. Other than that though, I love the way unlockables are handled. In GODBREAKERS, there are challenges attached to each head and torso. If I want that cool looking head, I simply have to beat a certain amount of one enemy type. Finish one run run with a post-game modifier called a tangle, and boom, cosmetic unlocked. Same thing goes for the extra weapons, and the 2 unlockable moves for each weapon that can alter their playstyle. Completing challenges like landing a certain amount of attacks in a row or god-breaking certain mini-bosses. There is always a reason to go back in for another run, so we can get Mike that weapon, Nick that weapon ability, Dan that torso, and my hope is that we will continue to get more cosmetics that come with more and more challenging requirements after launch. Not that I'll be finishing the really tough ones anytime soon. They really want me to beat a run with all of the Super Rebellion tangles? Well, I guess I'll have to lock in and tell my boys to do the same.
No, goodbye, guys.
Jesus Christ. But as I close out, I'd like to put my thinking cap on and raise a few nagging points that I couldn't help but see as I played. Firstly, I don't think GODBREAKERS is doing anything super unique. Taking enemy attacks? Dope as shit. I love seeing the new things I can do with those powers. But besides that, I've seen everything else this game does in other games. I've even seen some elements in other roguelites. It's true that I haven't seen GODBREAKERS' specific brand of melee-focused roguelite action, and I will retain that the gameplay and the visuals are both honed to a fine point. I see real Nintendo levels of polish here, but if you're looking for a gameplay experience that you can't get anywhere else, you might find some, but it might also be more of the same if you frequent the genre. It's the first time I've seen an equipment system like this in a roguelite, I'll admit that, but even then, the pool of equipment pieces you come across seems small to me. Since it's all randomized, I could totally be wrong, but I feel like we came across the same suspects in every run. Essence does help to give the equipment more utility, but choosing between fire damage over time and chain lightning again is not something GODBREAKERS has a monopoly on, leading to builds in particular feeling less potent than what you would see in other roguelites, since I've seen some of these same interactions and build types in similar roguelites. It's unavoidable that comparisons to others will be made, and at first I thought this was just me, but builds don't always consistently come together. To compare again, other roguelites I've played have something I'll refer to as build assist. In the same way that RPGs will increase your character's stats on level up based on the stats that are already being focused on, roguelites will usually recognize what perks you're selecting for your character on any given run. The game will recognize and predict where you're trying to take that character and subtly put perks and items in your path to complement the build. I don't feel like GODBREAKERS has that build assist. There were several runs where I was really trying to build into something like crits or burning because I got a great piece of gear at the start of the run. I want to continue to build off of that, but for the next 2 planets I find, fucking fantastic, chain lightning. I would find my stats being generally okay across the board instead of a specialist in my desired field. I won't say that runs were like this every single time. There were plenty of runs where I was able to find and build something pretty great.
Guys. Him up. Yes. Yes! Yes!
One highlight was a run where I was able to use the pillar archetype and I focused on big damage. I found a shoulder piece that would cause an explosion if I dealt over 100 damage every 10 seconds. Then I continued to find essences related to crit chance and crit damage with some other equipment piggybacking off of that too. The big bonk build was very fun and showed me just how awesome the pillar is. But I think that these runs where the stars align and you find what you want are more uncommon than they should be. I don't know if it helps to guide the game's algorithm by recycling any essences that I know won't contribute to the vision, but I did. When I picked up an essence that wasn't conducive to whatever I was aiming for, I would immediately recycle it to tell the game that I'm not interested. Nick also mentioned feeling like his builds had a tough time getting off the ground in the early game, but runs did just seem to become easier the more we went down the meta progression tree. Those upgrades really make a difference, and it's very possible that GODBREAKERS wants their combat sandbox to be more leveled out in that way until you get further in, not wanting players to achieve something as game-breaking. And I can say with confidence that the busted builds do come later on, but again, not being able to be busted right out the gate might be something to consider if that's super important to you. And finally, there's the matter of actually finishing the game. When you beat the final boss, your characters touch this orb and it breaks because you're not truly a human or whatever. After this, the tangles unlock and you can play runs with some very entertaining modifiers. But there are 5 tangles that are locked behind 7 side quests that have to be completed linearly. The 4th side quest only becomes available after you finish the 3rd side quest. Repeating this for all 5 planets to unlock all 5 special tangles is lame. I would have loved to finish the story for this video, not that I really cared for it, but it's the principle of beating the game. We cleared several runs, many with 5 other tangles on. The license to kill tangle that sees both you and enemies falling in just 1 hit makes the runs go by so fast. It completely changed how we approached the run and it was exhilarating. But even with these really fun modifiers, we were only on like step 5 5 of some of these quest lines. And continuing to do it just to unlock the final tangles is excessive, and I was bummed that I had to grind these boring fetch quests that only require me to hold up on the D-pad when close to a Yamaha keyboard in the fucking desert. But this game is still easily 110% worth your time because of that polish, and because of how it takes that polish and it elevates it to the fucking moon. Now, I do think that the legitimate issues it has, as few as they are, don't need to be ignored, but again, I also don't think that those few bullet points need to dominate the conversation when otherwise, this game gets everything else so right. GODBREAKERS is a roguelite that I very much recommend you play. It's a stunning treat for the eyes. The combat falls into that easy to play, difficult to master territory with highlights in frenetic and tactical boss fights. The progression, while not as explosive as others in the genre, is meaningful, offering groups of friends the opportunity to create some great synergies through careful consideration of equipment and essences. My few concerns, like more varied equipment which will offer more paths for characters to go down, can easily be solved by patches or DLC if the team plans on going down that route. And you know, it's really light on the fluff. You load into the game, invite your buddies, and then from there you all just hop onto the square and start a run. Because of the large amount of unlockables, it's really easy for me to see a group of friends just keeping GODBREAKERS on their hard drive and hopping in for a chill little run or two every so often. Thank you again to Thunderful for the awesome opportunity. GODBREAKERS is available now on Steam and the PlayStation Store. Take a look to see if it's a good fit for you and your group, or maybe even put it on your wish list. Any group of roguelite fans will have a great time meeting the bosses and the challenges this game has to offer. Or hell, I don't know, maybe you'll get squashed like us. Fucking stupid pieces of shit. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed me screaming with my friends at video games that also happen to be a really fun time, then I would be eternally grateful if you liked this video and subscribed to the channel. I'm not heading back to my Dragon Quest retrospective just yet. Instead, I'll be putting out a video or two on some games that I've been meaning to play for a while now. One where I screamed with my friends even more already has the script recorded, so you won't have to wait too long for that one. And if you really liked your time here and want to go a step further beyond subscribing, you can head down to the description and find links to the CPG community Discord server and my Patreon. If you join over there, you'll gain access to perks like uncensored and ad-free versions of my videos, as well as exclusive videos. And I would also like to thank my $10 patrons WhiteGhost117 and NikkiCoon99. All the love in the world to my fellas, and thank you guys again for playing this game for me. That is another perk of the Patreon, by the way, if you're interested. But anyway, I appreciate you so much for watching. So thanks for stopping by, and have a great day.